Chosen ones, this message is not for everyone. But if you've ever sat alone and wondered why your love life feels confusing, why people you genuinely cared about walked away, or why something that felt so right suddenly fell apart, then you need to hear this carefully, because what you saw as rejection was actually protection. You see, one of the most painful things to experience is losing someone you had already imagined a future with. You saw potential, you felt connection, you believed it could work, and when it ended, it didn't just feel like you lost a person, it felt like you lost a possibility, a future, a version of your life that will now never exist. And that pain can make you question everything. It can make you question your worth, your choices, even your faith. But what if I told you that not every loss is a loss? What if some endings are actually divine interruptions? Because not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. And not every relationship that feels good is good for you. Sometimes what feels right emotionally is completely wrong spiritually. And that is where many chosen ones struggle. You feel deeply, you love deeply, and because of that, you sometimes ignore what your spirit is trying to tell you. You overlook small signs. You make excuses for behavior that doesn't sit right with you. You hold on longer than you should because you don't want to let go of the connection. But listen carefully. God sees what you cannot see. He sees the conversations you are not part of, the intentions hidden behind words, the future consequences of present decisions. And because He sees the full picture, He will sometimes remove people from your life in ways that don't make sense to you at the moment. That sudden distance, that unexpected breakup, that shift in behavior, it may feel confusing, but it is not random. It is divine protection, because if God allowed every relationship you desire to continue, you would eventually find yourself in situations that would drain you emotionally, distract you spiritually, and delay you purposefully. There are people who look good on their outside, but are not aligned with your destiny. They may have the appearance of what you want, but they lack the character required for where you are going. And if you stay connected to someone who is not aligned with your purpose, you will eventually start compromising your standards just to keep them. You will begin to tolerate things you once said you would never accept. You will silence your intuition just to maintain peace. You will shrink yourself just to fit into a connection that was never designed for you. And over time, you will lose parts of yourself without even realizing it. That is why God steps in, not to hurt you, but to save you. Think about how many times something ended and you were devastated, only to later realize that it would have never worked. Think about the times you wanted something so badly, but it didn't happen, and now you are grateful it didn't. That is how God works. He protects you in ways that don't always feel good in the moment but make sense later. And here is something you need to understand. The enemy does not always come with obvious danger. Sometimes it comes disguised as something you have been praying for. It looks right, it feels right, it sounds right, but it leads you in the wrong direction. That is why discernment is so important. Not everything that enters your life is meant to stay. Some things are tests. Some people are assignments to see if you have truly grown, if you have truly learned your lessons, if you are truly ready for what you have been praying for. And if you fail the test by ignoring the signs, by compromising your values, by choosing emotions over wisdom, you repeat the cycle. That's why many people find themselves in the same kind of relationship over and over again, just with different faces. The names change, but the patterns remain. The pain repeats because the lesson was never learned. But you are breaking that cycle. You are becoming more aware, more discerning, more intentional, and that is why certain connections are not working anymore. You are outgrowing what once attracted you. You are evolving into someone who cannot settle for less than what aligns with your purpose. And that growth requires separation. It requires letting go. It requires trusting God even when it doesn't make sense. Look at the story of David. Before he stepped into his purpose as king, he went through seasons of rejection, isolation, and misunderstanding. He was overlooked by his own family, chased by people who wanted to harm him, and placed in situations that tested his patience and faith. But every delay, every setback, every closed door was preparing him for something greater. If everything had worked out quickly and easily, he would not have developed the strength, wisdom, and character needed for his assignment. The same applies to your love life. If every relationship worked out, you would not learn discernment. If every person stayed, you would not understand the value of alignment. If every connection succeeded, you might end up settling for something that feels good but is not right. And God loves you too much to let that happen. So He protects you. He removes people. He closes doors. He allows things to end, not because He is against you, but because He is for you. And sometimes, protection feels like pain. Sometimes, it feels like loss. Sometimes, it feels like loneliness. But it is still protection. Chosen ones, you need to stop interpreting every ending as a failure. Some endings are victories in disguise. Some endings are answers to prayers you forgot you prayed. You asked God for peace, so He removed the person disturbing your peace. You asked for clarity, so He exposed what was hidden. You asked for a healthy relationship, so He removed the unhealthy one. But because it didn't happen the way you expected, you called it a loss. You called it rejection. You called it disappointment. But in reality, it was alignment. It was God redirecting your path. And here is where many people get it wrong. They try to go back. They try to reopen doors that God has already closed. They try to reconnect with people who were removed for a reason. And in doing so, they delay their own progress. Because every time you go back to what God has delivered you from, you are stepping out of alignment. You are choosing familiarity over purpose. You are choosing comfort over growth. But growth requires letting go. It requires trusting that what God has ahead is better than what you left behind. And I know it's not easy. I know it's hard to let go of someone you cared about. I know it's difficult to accept that something you wanted is not meant for you. But you have to trust that God sees what you don't see. He knows what you don't know. And He is guiding you in a direction that leads to something better. The right relationship will not require you to ignore your peace. It will not make you feel anxious, confused, or insecure. It will not force you to question your worth. The right relationship will align with your values, support your growth, and bring a sense of stability into your life. And that is what God is preparing you for. But before He brings that into your life, He needs to make sure you are ready to recognize it, ready to receive it, ready to sustain it. Because the right relationship is not just about finding the right person. It is also about being the right person. And that is what this season is about. Preparation, growth, transformation. So instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Start asking, what is God teaching me through this? Because every experience has a lesson. Every ending has a purpose. Every delay has a reason. And when you begin to see things from that perspective, you stop feeling like a victim and start understanding that you are being guided. So chosen ones, trust the process, trust the timing, trust the protection, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it hurts, even when you feel alone. Because one day, everything will make sense. One day, you will look back and thank God for every person He removed, every door He closed, and every relationship that didn't work out. Because you will finally see, it was not rejection, it was protection. If this message spoke to you, don't ignore it, because this might be the confirmation you've been waiting for. Please watch.